Very happy to have you today. Welcome to the 24th Annual International Business Ethics Case Competition. We're so glad you're here. We know that you have spent a lot of time putting together your analysis and your presentation, and we're just so glad to have you here. As you know, IBEC is the premier business ethics case competition in the world. 24 years now, with people coming in from many, many countries over the course of the year. This, of course, is our second year using this via Zoom, and it is, I have to say, going quite well. Let's start by introducing each other. We'll start with the judges first, and then we'll move on to our student team. My name is Jim Arnold. I am your Uber judge or your senior judge today. I have been with IBEC for 15 years now, 2006. I've been very privileged to be a part of the organization. There are 7 of us Uber judges, senior judges. We've all been with IBEC for many years because we love it. We love the students and all. And we've been here for many years, which is just basically a nice way of saying we're all very old. But there are 7 of us. And so we do have that continuity year to year. I was a professor at the University of St. Thomas, teaching management and communication. And I'm also one of the founding faculty members of the full-time MBA program at St. Thomas. With me today are 3 very experienced judges who have spent time in the field of ethics, compliance, and its surrounding industries. And so what I'd like to do first, let's go around and each of our judges for today, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. Bobby, I think you were the last one here, so you get to go first.
Hi, everybody. My name's Bobby Kipp. I am a retired partner from PricewaterhouseCoopers. I was PwC's global ethics and business conduct leader and some other things for a long time. And originally was trained as an accountant, and I live in the Boston area. I've been a judge with IBEC for several years and been involved in the field for a long time. And I want to wish you the best today. I'm sure you're going to do great.
Excellent, excellent. And let's see, Robert, how about you next, Robert, and then Julie?
Sure. My name is Robert Klamser, and as Professor White said, I competed actually 3 times, twice as an undergrad, once as a grad student, and I've judged once before. I started a company that does case administration and consulting for large corporate Chapter 11 bankruptcy cases. And I live in Denver now. The company was acquired a couple years ago, part of a bigger organization. I will say that being in your shoes a couple times now, this is a really unique opportunity. And I will tell you that it's one that's come up in conversation a lot for me professionally after the fact. And I applaud you guys for doing this, because when you start to meet people, when you get out into the business world or you get out into the professional world, you're always looking for that hook. You're always looking for something to make you stand out in a crowd. And this is one of those opportunities that really does that. And like Professor White said, not only have I used it professionally, I was a 5-day champion on Hollywood Squares. And this was one of the things that came up when I was on that. So that was what he was referencing when he said national TV. But hats off to you guys. Enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it. And good luck.
Thanks, Julie.
Great. Well, I'm Julie Gershman. It is so great to see you all. I've been with the competition now about 4 years, so I'm still a newbie compared to many of the Uber judges and, of course, those who founded IBEC. It is one of my favorite times of year to be with students and to hear new and fresh ideas and listen to the reasoning and hopefully provide the perspective of somebody who has been in corporate America for 25 years on both the business side and the legal side. I'm trained as a lawyer. Like Caitlin, I was an undergraduate psychology major, went to law school, and most recently, and in my most favorite position, I was a global ethics officer for Prudential Financial. Currently, I have my own consulting company on policies and really touch on the employee experience along the way. And I'm very much looking forward to today. Take it away.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Julie. Everyone in this room is very important, but I think given where we're at in the world right now, the most important person here today is our tech person, who is going to keep everything running in a time when who knows. But here at IBEC, everything is running super, super well. So Robbie, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Ravi Rajan. I live in Santa Barbara, California, and I've actually helped Tom White with the competition from the very beginning, since actually 1996 when I was a student at LMU, and probably age myself saying that, but uh, it used to be a biathlon back in the day. So we would set up, like on the Saturday morning, we would set up a 5K and 10K run for everybody, and then have the award ceremony in the evening. So I've been with this for a while. I've been a judge. I work at Raytheon Corporation in Santa Barbara. I'm a storage engineer there. Thank you. And if you guys have any problems, I dropped my phone number in the chat window. If you get dropped off or something, feel free to text or call me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Robbie. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
And that's the judges today. Let's go to our student team now and have each of you introduce yourselves. Just go right ahead.
My name is Caitlin Cody, and I am a junior psychology major at College of the Holy Cross. I'm pursuing a minor in business ethics and society as well. And I'm extremely excited for the competition today, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Wonderful. Thanks, Caitlin.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Vaca. I'm a junior accounting major at the college. I know, Bobby, you mentioned you work at PwC. I have an internship with PwC this summer in Boston, actually. And I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having us today.
Very good. Thank you, Lindsay. Robin?
Hi, my name's Robin, and I'm a junior philosophy and econ major, and just nice to be here. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, we have looked at your executive summary, and what we understand is that we are playing the role of Facebook's executive team, correct? Can you describe how you are defining executive team?
Sure. So we're going to assume it's our CEO, Mark Zuckerberg,
Okay.
and associates of his.
Okay, so we're basically VPs and such. Okay, excellent. And tell us, what role are you playing?
So we are taking on the role of the ethics committee, a committee of different individuals from different subdivisions in the Facebook company that have come together to consult with the larger executive board.
Okay, excellent. We are the executive team and you are the ethics committee. That's excellent. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the same thing that we read to every team. And you've seen this before on the website. You've been working on your analysis for a long time. So this is all going to be redundant, but it's ethically important that we start everybody off on the same footing. And so what we do is we read this particular paragraph. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges, which you have done. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who we are before you begin. Again, we are done. You will have 25 minutes plus a 5-minute cushion for a total of 30 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem, and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, you will not be interrupted at all. And at 30 minutes, I will tell you that time is up, and I will ask you at that moment to please get into your final couple of sentences to finish up. Now, when you're finished, the judges are going to ask you questions for about 20 minutes or so. We're going to stay in character, and we want you to stay in character as the ethics committee as well. And then after the Q&A, we're going to jump out of our roles and we're going to come back to who we are and you as students again, and we're going to give you some feedback on your presentation and on your analysis. And you'll have the opportunity, if you choose, to use some of that feedback in your 10-minute and your 90-second presentations. The ethical aspects of your analysis are the most important part. However, these should be described in a simple, practical, common sense fashion. Using technical philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religious or theological grounds will be considered a serious weakness in scoring. During this presentation, every member of the team must have some sort of speaking role. And during the Q&A, we expect everyone to be participants as well. Also, definitely, if we were live together, you would be giving eye contact to all of us, to the judges. You'd be making eye contact with us. We'd like to have that again. So I'm asking you, be sure to look into your camera when you are speaking. We don't see this much on Zoom. People have a tendency to look down at their screen, looking at other people, thinking they're making eye contact, but you know what that looks like. So we're asking you to look into your camera as you speak. Now, do you have any questions before we begin, team? No, you are ready to go. What's going to happen is Ravi will be spotlighting you as you're speaking. So only the speaker and your PowerPoints are going to appear on the screen. You will not see us as judges or anybody else. Only you are going to be on the screen, and only when you are speaking. And once again, welcome to IBEC. We're thrilled to have you here, and please begin.
So I'm just going to share my screen really quickly with the group. Excellent. We are off. Our presentation is titled Facebook, the New Drug. We are representatives of the Facebook Ethics Committee. My name is Caitlin Cody, and I am the psychologist on board.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay Vaca, and I am the representative from Finance and Accounting on the Ethics Committee. Thank you for having us today.
And good afternoon. My name is Robin Liu. And what I'll do is I'll work as the business development part of the Facebook and Instagram.
Our mission today is to return Facebook back to its original mission, which is to restore the Facebook brand, which is to better connect family and friends and the world and to capture and share the world's moments. So Facebook and Instagram started as photo sharing apps, and we'd like to return to that basic philosophy. The current problem is adolescents are extremely addicted to social media. This is great for us as a company because our goal was to target adolescents and to draw them in to our app interfaces. We've been very successful in that regard. However, it comes at an extreme cost. Because adolescents are being targeted, the Instagram and Facebook applications are being responded to like a drug, and it's having extreme negative impacts on their mental and physical health. While this has led to us growing as a company, it's not good for the adolescent brain, which is still developing. So we as a company, Facebook, are obligated to take care of our young users and to make sure that they are in a safe environment. In order to present this information, we're going to start with what the issue is and what we can do about it as a company. Then we are going to go into Lindsay's commentary on the financial and legal implications. And then finally, Robin will wrap it up with what does our implementation strategies look like. We as a company have an obligation to our youth. Right now, Facebook and Instagram is not a safe space for adolescents, which I will define as ages 13 to 18. What we propose as a solution is introducing a new version of the app's interface called Facebook and Instagram Lite. What this will do is in the original app, there will be an option for 13 to 18-year-olds to sign up for an application that does not have the like button. This will eliminate that addictive factor. It also will not have targeted ads, and it will not have other search criteria like hashtags, reels, and places. Essentially, we will be creating a safer environment for the younger users that allows them to interact with their friends, make those connections without being addicted to the app, which, as I've mentioned before, Facebook and Instagram are currently extremely addictive to the youth, like a drug would be. Now, why are Facebook and Instagram so addictive to adolescents in particular? First, let's take this scenario. An adolescent does something, and because they are so receptive to how their peers respond, when their peers respond in a positive way, there's a dopamine squirt in their brain. This dopamine squirt triggers the reward center of their brain and makes them want to continue whatever action led to that dopamine squirt. That is why Instagram and Facebook likes are kind of like an addictive drug. You get the dopamine squirt and you'd like to continue whatever action caused that. On the contrary, if an adolescent does something, maybe they post a picture and they don't receive any likes, they don't receive any comments from their friends, then they receive it, that's a negative peer response. And that leads to physical pain, which actually has been proven through research to be able to be treated by pain medicine like Tylenol, because it's that dramatic. Now, why is this the case? Well, during a period of adolescence, the brain is developing at different rates. This is called a period of mismatch. The limbic region, which regulates adolescents' emotions, that develops first, and it hits its peak around age 15. The prefrontal cortex, which is where logic and reason are regulated, that doesn't fully develop until age 25, which means adolescents are processing every single event through an emotional lens. Every like that comes through on their phone, or every lack of like, is felt deeply and emotionally. They can't see the long-term effects. They're only focused on the now, which is why it's so emotional. And this is because adolescence is outlined by a period of storm and stress. These three pillars that define storm and stress are conflict with parents, mood disruptions, and risk behavior. For the purposes of our presentation, we will be targeting mood disruptions and risk behavior in particular. Mood disruptions because adolescents are thinking so emotionally, their mood levels are jumping all over the place. They can quickly go from being happy to receiving a negative peer feedback and then being extremely sad or depressive. Additionally, during adolescence, risk behavior is more likely, and that's because adolescents, again, are so focused on the now and what makes them feel good in the present moment that they're not thinking about the long term, which then puts them at risk to post certain pictures just to receive more likes, and maybe those pictures aren't the most appropriate, or comment and like on riskier behavior or riskier pictures on Instagram and Facebook. So what does this have to do with the like button in particular? And in our opinion, the like button is the most detrimental aspect to Facebook and Instagram for the adolescent age group. According to a Sherman et al. 2016 article, when adolescents are viewing images with more likes, it triggers the reward center of their brain. And they view that as a positive thing. And they want to keep interacting with those users and those profiles and those photos. This is further evidence of virtual peer endorsement. So not only is peer endorsement felt in the physical world or when they're interacting with one another in person, but it's also felt online. The implications of this can be really bad, because if an adolescent is looking at their Instagram profile and they see they aren't receiving very many likes on their photo, but their friend is receiving a lot, then it creates a feeling of isolation, and it can lead to adolescents having more depressive symptoms and other mental health issues. Social media and psychopathology. What's the link? Well, because storm and stress is more likely, then it can lead to further mood disruptions. And as psychopathology emerges during adolescence, we can find an association between mental health and social media in teens. As a company, Facebook, we have created this drug for adolescents that's leading to a lot of negative implications. And because of that, we are responsible as a company to take charge now and to provide a solution. Now I'm going to pass it off to Lindsay, who's going to talk about the legal implications for us as a company.
Thank you, Caitlin, for that wonderful overview of the ethical issue at hand. So we really have to think about, just like Caitlin said in the beginning, is it ethical? Is it fair for us to do something that might be good for our company financially and potentially legally by allowing adolescents to continue using our platform as is? Or do we have this obligation to help them? And so we're going to look at the financial and legal repercussions of what would happen if we do take action on the research that Caitlin just presented, and what could potentially happen if we don't. So first, we're going to take a look at the potential financial liabilities linked to us not making any modifications to our platform as is. And what I'd like to start with is lawsuits. As you all know, we are in the middle of a huge antitrust lawsuit currently, where 40 attorney generals and the FTC are coming at us because of our neutralization of our rivals and the idea that we are becoming a monopoly. And while this doesn't have anything directly to do with likes and comments and the organization of our platform, it does have a lot to do with the fact of how much we have on our plate right now. We do not have the resources to continue having a ton of lawsuits. We just don't have the room on our plate for it. And so that's something that we have to keep in mind when we're thinking about what we're going to be doing. Additionally, there are other lawsuits more directly related to the issue at hand with likes. And so currently we are in a lawsuit where 4 individuals are seeking damages for non-consensual tracking that happened between 2010 and 2011 with their like button and activity on Facebook. And they are seeking $15 billion in damages from our company. That is approximately 20% of our spending from 2020. And that's a lot of money. That's only 4 individuals. So we can imagine what would happen if they were successful. We would have tons more lawsuits. And with the one that we already have on our hands right now with the antitrust lawsuit, we do not have the capacity. We don't have the time, effort, legal team. We don't have the money for all of those legal fees, and that would just be disastrous. Furthermore, we have to look on the flip side of the lawsuits that we are pursuing as a company related to the like button. Right now, we're in multiple different lawsuits that we're pursuing against companies who have issued fake likes on our platform. And while that might not mean that we're paying damages to them, we have to, again, spend the time and the money and the effort related to these things to fix it. And we have to put our legal teams on it and pursue it ourselves. And so we see a lot going on with our lawsuits. We don't need more on our plate, and it could be fully disastrous if we don't start to work on the problem and try and fix it. Another thing that I'd like to point out is the decline in public support that would happen if we don't make some kind of modification to address the issues that Caitlin was saying. So Caitlin said that there are specific mental health issues that can come along with our platforms. And especially in the climate that we are at today, where talking about mental health is becoming a bigger deal, and rightfully so, this could be a big deal if people start to realize what Caitlin has been outlining is that we know that this is addictive, and we know that this could cause these bad negative consequences for adolescents. So if the public figures this out, there's going to be a huge decline. And we were already beginning to see it, where people are saying that social media might be bad, and we see people trying to take detoxes off our platforms. So as an industry leader, we have to do something about that. Otherwise, the decline in public support is going to potentially overtake us, and that's a huge liability. So what these two things kind of lead me to think about, and what I want you to think about, is what happened in the cigarette industry, where the cigarette companies knowingly exploited their customers and users for revenues. And that's kind of what we're thinking about here is we are knowingly exploiting our adolescents, knowing that they want our platform like a drug for our revenues, for our non-financial measures. And we don't want to become the next cigarette industry, because once the public started figuring that out, and once the lawsuits started rolling into the cigarette industry, it took a nosedive, and many companies went out of business, and it was just a disaster. And so therefore we need to be careful. And another thing is that the opioid industry, the same thing happened, even worse so, and where they knowingly exploited their customers, and it had significant ramifications to their industry. Now, on the flip side, we're going to look at the potential financial opportunities that could present themselves if we do choose to make these modifications to our platform to protect these vulnerable members of our society. First, we have to think about the long-term perspective. So we do measure in our typical meetings with you, we do measure success both on financial and non-financial measures. And we can predict that in the short term, if we were able to make these changes, that we might have to take a short-term hit, both in terms of revenue as well as number of users, number of hours our users spend on our platforms. But that's okay, because if we take a long-term perspective, we can anticipate that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this will become the norm. That teens 13 to 18 are going to be excited to even use our modified version, that parents are going to be more willing to allow them to go on, that parents themselves will feel more safe knowing that we take care of our vulnerable members of society. And so when we think about the long-term perspective, we can see the potential for our financial and non-financial measures to become better, even though we have to take some of that short-term hit. Another important factor, an opportunity to point out, is our research and development. We spend, actually in 2020, we spent $18 billion on our research and development, which equated to about 21% of our spending. And that was up from $13 billion in 2019. So we spend an exorbitant amount, as you know, on our research and development. It's very important to our platform. And we have a lot of opportunities of what we can do about this. Mr. Zuckerberg, I know that you presented your idea about a kid version Instagram for kids under the age of 13 to Congress in the past few weeks. And we can see from their reaction, there isn't a lot of public support for this. They made points similar to the ones that Caitlin made about how developed the brain is. And just like we saw with what Caitlin said, the kids, they're not developed enough for that at 13 to 18. So why would under 13 be developed enough to handle a kid version Instagram? So if we were able to devote the resources that we're pouring into this, that Congress already said there's going to be a lot of pushback, we're going to push back on that. If we can devote those resources to our new modifications to the 13 to 18 age group, we wouldn't be taking a hit at all to our research and development. We really could spend the same amount of money and just shift those resources. Additionally, since we spend so much money, we could devote part of that to just mental health research for our society, to do good for the society, which brings me to my next point about building up our reputation. If we can show that we are taking a conscious effort to not exploit our users, to not exploit our customers, as in the cigarette industry or the opioid industry, then our reputation will be better in our society. Then people are going to see that we really are an industry leader, taking risks to do something that not everybody else is doing, but to show that we care about the members of our society, that we care about mental health. Then we are going to, as you can see, attract new users and investors. People are going to see that we are a good company, that we are going back to that mission that Caitlin was talking about at the end, where we're just trying to connect people without the negative consequences. And it's really going to do well by our society and help us in the long run with that long-term perspective. One more issue that I want to tackle is, Caitlin mentioned it briefly, and Robin will talk a little bit more about the logistics later, is that our modified version, our Instagram Lite, our Facebook Lite, will not include targeted ads. And the common question that comes out of this is, how are we going to make revenues without targeted ads? Because it has become such a cash cow for us, and it has brought in so much revenue for us. What we propose is looking a little bit at what Disney Channel and Nickelodeon do on their channels on TV, which is all of their advertisers know for sure that their ads are going to get to their targeted age group. So if we are able to present our ads to our advertisers, as we know that they're going to go to everybody all at the same time, might not be targeted, but we will still allow ads on the platform. It will just go to everybody. And then our advertisers will know for a fact that their ads are going to go to their exact target age group in a big way. It's going to go to all of our users. And that potentially might not only match what we're making in ad revenue in that age group, but surpass it, because they know that they're going to get to the age group that they are looking to get. And that will definitely be another potential financial opportunity that would be huge for our company. So now I'm going to pass it on to Robin, talk a little bit more in depth about things that Caitlin and I have mentioned about what this modified version is going to look like and how we're going to implement it.
Thank you, Lindsay. And as Lindsay talked about the possible financial losses to our company caused by the ethical issues which Caitlin discussed about, I'm going to address possible solutions to these issues. Here, I will use Instagram as an example because I feel like it's one of the most popular apps among the young teenagers. So first, we will implement a new registration system to our platform. This is because we see that it is necessary to differentiate age groups in our practice. And we will start these proposed actions in our US. Then we will enroll out this to the world by following the regulations of each country. So when users is going to open a new account next time, he or she will be asked to provide either any forms of proof of age or upload or log in with social security numbers. Meanwhile, privacy and securities are our first priorities. So when users are choosing to log in with their social security numbers, they will be directed to the social security website. Then the website will return us the user's birth date. We are proud that this will be our first step to collaborate with the public agencies as the global companies. Or the users can also upload any source of age proofs. Most importantly, information sent to our system will be encrypted and will be deleted once the verification is complete. Then the users aged from 13 to 18 years old will be opted into our light mode, and they can choose to be opt into the full mode once they become a legal adult. Second, I will talk about some changes regarding to our user experience. First, I will talk about ads, which is one of our major revenues. So in our Facebook, Instagram Lite mode, we will introduce our new department for the protection and care of children, as we realize that ads will be not targeted to in our Lite mode. It means every users in our Lite mode will receive the same ads as other teenager does. As a result, our new teams will be responsible for examining the profile of each company before they're entering our platforms. And also, in the meantime, our new colleagues will also examine each ad content before they go online. In the long run, we believe this practice will generate as much revenue as we used to do. Secondly, since we recognize that adolescents are addicted to like functions, which, as Caitlin talks about, are bad for their mental development. As a result, the like functions will be removed from Lite mode. However, we will keep the like button, but users under Lite mode will not receive any notifications when someone likes their post. Instead, it will work like an archive button that adolescent users can look back to the post they like. And we have already implemented these functions in our latest app version. Third, we will implement a stricter content control in our Lite mode. This means we will temporarily remove the system push content from our platform. We recognize that the computer algorithms might go wrong and teenagers might receive false information. And we see that this is age that teenagers are building up their minds. And you probably don't want to see your children see some super rich person posting a picture of his fancy mansion or just a picture of his luxury cars. And we see this might cause the bandwagon effect among teenagers because it is the age that teenagers are still difficult for them to differentiate what is good and what is bad. We will not only remove the system push content, but we will also remove hashtags and places for the same reason. However, teenagers in our platform can still use the hashtag functions and place functions when they post the pictures. However, if they click hashtags in the app, they can only view the content within the people they followed or in the Facebook, the friends they added. And for the same reason, we also removed Reels and Shops. As Caitlin talks about, Reels are causing the addictions among teenagers, and it is bad for the development of their mental health. As a result, we will remove this from our Lite mode, as well as we recognize that the shop functions are unnecessary in the teenage function app. By doing so, I think we are moving to where we used to be, and this leads to our first mission, which is to connect families and friends around the world and to capture and share your moment. Now I will give my speech back to Caitlin.
So just to wrap it up, we want to point out that we have a wonderful app. We have a great potential and a great opportunity to reach many of the young minds that are currently involved with our app interfaces. We see also during adolescence is a time where many intimate friendships are formed, and these intimate friendships lead to higher self-esteem. And high self-esteem is good because it has the exact opposite effect of some of the mental issues that are associated with the like button and some of the other risks that adolescents face during this period. Especially now, we've been involved in a pandemic, and this means that many adolescents haven't been able to spend quality time with their friends or even certain family members. So we'd like to bring our app back to what it was originally meant to be, which is a photo sharing platform. Adolescents can post photos and they can see photos from their family members, their cousins, their aunts, their uncles, their friends who live 2 states away. They can connect with one another because we understand that adolescence is a time for connection and it's a time for friendships to be born. And we have such a great opportunity to take this wonderful technology that we've created and move it away from the drug industry and into something that's really positive and something to be proud of. We have an opportunity to create a tool for success for adolescents during their development. Let's keep it real online, everybody. Thank you very much.
Jim, you're muted.
Thank you. And now we're going to have some questions from the executive team. I'll start with a quick one for you, and then we'll move on to the executive team. An important piece about this, all of this, is the coolness factor. And we are no longer cool, at least not in Facebook. And that is what killed the Microsoft product, MySpace, many years ago. And maybe even people, not everybody in this room remembers MySpace. That was the beginning, and it was very quickly the end. And how are we going to address the cool factor when half of teens, only half of teens, are on Facebook because it's just, the rest of them consider it for grandpa and grandma. And so and now we're adding more levels of work for them to even get involved. How are we going to address that?
You know, I think that's a really excellent point. Instagram is a subset of Facebook, and Instagram does attract a lot of young users. And by having that interface be really promoting photo sharing and interacting with your peers, we're cool and we're keeping it young. We're keeping it real for the young people. So while Facebook might be a little bit older and not as popular among young individuals and adolescents in particular, they are drawn to Instagram because it's a way for them to connect with their friends when they're not together.
So should we ditch Facebook altogether and just have that for grandma and grandpa and then put everybody else over to Instagram?
Well, no, because when adolescents go to college, you know, all these colleges and universities have those groups where you can join and connect with potential roommates and other people who will be in your class year. So there is some value to having Facebook as well.
And I'll just turn it over to any of our other board members.
I
have a question for you.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Go ahead, Robert.
Okay, quick question. You all used the word early on, you used the word obligation, and you talked about an obligation to our youth. And I feel conflicted because I'm sitting here with my own kids, and I have an obligation to those kids to, I have an obligation as their parent to monitor their online presence. But we're all sitting in this room with a financial and I would say an ethical obligation to our shareholders. And I'm not convinced by what you're saying that we should, that we as Facebook and Instagram should put more weight on the obligation to our youth and not on our shareholders, because that's our job here. So can you address that? How do we balance my obligation to my kids, but my obligation in my role to my shareholders?
Absolutely, I can address that for you. So what I was trying to show a little bit in my slide about the potential financial opportunities is that we have the opportunity here to attract new shareholders, to attract a new group that we aren't necessarily hitting, those that are more concerned about our youth. And as a parent, you're going to want to allow your children to do things that are protected, that you know that the company is going to take care of that. And so we're going to attract new shareholders that are going to say, hey, you know what, we're going to buy into shit. We're going to invest in Facebook because they're taking these steps to show that they care about our world. And like I mentioned before in my slides, we may have to take a short-term hit. It definitely will hit us in the coming years, and more so than anything in those non-financial measures, we believe, rather than the financial measures. But in the long term, it's going to attract those people. It's going to show a new set of shareholders. Hey, you know what? Facebook is doing the right thing. We're going to invest our money there rather than other places. That's the hope.
So I think along those same lines where Robert was going, so I'm glad you went first. From a financial standpoint, I'm thinking about, and Lindsay, this probably goes to you as the financial rep. So the solution around Instagram Lite, Facebook Lite, which says everybody gets all ads, is, if I understand it right, everybody gets all ads. There's no targeted ads. So aren't we going to have to turn down some advertisers because their advertising is inappropriate for all audiences? That's number one. So how much are we going to lose on that? Number two, have we tested what are our advertisers willing to pay now that the ads are not going to be targeted to the people they really want them to get to? So I want to understand how we've sort of tested out the business solution.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the important thing that you pointed out there is that we are going to have to turn down advertisers. And that puts us in a position to kind of take the highest bid there. That we're going to see, you know, who's going to pay the most amount of money, because it is going to be attractive for a lot of different companies to say, hey, you know what, we're selling a piece of clothing that all the teenage girls want nowadays. It's a purse that everybody likes. And we know that we want it to get out to this age group, 13 to 18. That's exactly what it is. Let's say it's like a backpack, a Hello Kitty backpack, let's say. And they really want it to get out to this age group. They're going to bid a certain amount of money to say, you know what, we really want this here. And then there's another company that says, well, you know what, we have a product that fits that exact age group too. We're going to bid there. And so we will have to turn down. Not everybody is going to, we can't fill the entire feed with ads. And that puts us in a position to, like I said, rake in more money, to bring in more money than we are currently making, because it's going to attract more people knowing that it will go to the age group that they exactly want.
And just to add a little bit of clarification too, the older interface, so once adolescents exit the Facebook and Instagram Lite, they have the option to opt in to the regular interface, and that still does have targeted ads. We're not removing it from everybody, we're just removing it from the at-risk population.
Great. I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction, and that is we're eliminating the like button, we're eliminating some hashtags in places, but there's still comments. Do I understand that correctly?
No comments. That goes with the likes too. I apologize for the confusion. So likes and comments are both gone.
Okay. That's good, because comments could be just a substitute for the likes. Thank you for explaining that. Have you spoken with the ethics committees at other companies like TikTok or Snapchat to determine whether they're thinking about the same types of limitations on platforms for adolescents? And the reason I'm asking the question is most likely another company is just going to come in and fill that space if that's really what people want. So I'd like to know what kind of research you've done on that front.
So I think one of the important things that we want to get across is we as Facebook, we are the industry leader. We want to be the person bringing these new ideas to the table, to bring this out, to lead our industry in this kind of thing. And so while we may not have spoken directly with any of the other ethics committees on this, hopefully what we're going to do is going to set an example for other people, because the issues that I was outlining in terms of potential financial liabilities are not unique to Facebook. All of the other TikTok, that they're going to see similar things in terms of non-consensual tracking that we're seeing with the lawsuits and the algorithms that they use. And so that's not unique to Facebook. That's going to be all across. So if we can get ahead of the curve and be the industry leader that we are, then that's going to speak volumes in our society.
But I think, Julia, if I were to I like your idea, maybe we ought to consider joining hands with some of our colleagues that have different but similar products and saying, why don't we as an industry take on this challenge that says there's some good to be done by keeping the social connections through social media. However, there's risks that we're trying to help address. And here's what we'd like to do as an industry. So just a suggestion of something to consider. Maybe you weren't going there, Julie, but it made me think of it when you said it.
Yeah, no, excellent to stay, at least not be scooped, right? And understand where other companies are. Interesting point. Be interesting if you've thought about it.
And we did think about it. We saw it more as an opportunity to be a leader and to present this research and be forthcoming with it rather than have it presented to us.
Okay. One last point, we know kids already have 2, sometimes 3 Instagram accounts, the ones that they have, the ones their parents don't know about, and maybe even a third one. And this idea that people are going to scan in their social security cards, I think is a complete fallacy. Quite frankly, we have been subject to so many breaches around privacy. There is no way anybody is going to scan in a social security card. So, and we know that kids already create dummy accounts. So how are you really going to validate somebody's age?
So at first, you're not going to scan your social security card. It's a collaboration with the Social Security Department, which means when you're going to register for a new account, you will have to choose to click the button, which will direct you to the Social Security website provided by the Social Security Department and put in your Social Security number. It's just like you go to IRS and put down your Social Security numbers. And what Social Security website will give us is only your name and your birth date. No other information will be provided. So this is all done within the Social Securities. What we know from Social Security is only your age and your name. On the other hand, if you don't have Social Security, because we know there are immigrants or foreigners who doesn't have those informations, what they will do is they can either choose to upload an ID like driver's license or passport. Even for young adult, they can go into school and ask for school officials to provide a certificate of their age or proof so that we can re-verify what their age is.
Have you confirmed that that technology is available with the Social Security Department? I find it hard to believe that you could just type in a number and then if it's a valid Social Security number, get someone's name and their birth date. That seems like a potential liability. And I guess I'm not aware that you guys have had the conversation. So where are we on that front? Is that even possible? Because it seems like a hurdle. We're creating a lot of hurdles.
One thing that we'd like to draw your attention to in Connecticut, which is where I live and I operate out of, to sign up for a vaccine, we went through Hartford Healthcare, and what you had to do was you had to enter your Social Security number, and then it prompted you to ask, have you ever lived at these addresses, and a few other questions related to your Social Security number. And the website itself didn't take that, much like Robin was saying. Afterwards, it deleted that, but it verified my age so that when I signed up for the vaccine, they knew that I was eligible. So it would be similar technology to that. So it absolutely is possible. And it'd be more of a collaboration with the government on that, which is something that we're able and willing to do.
Is that the same government that's suing us at 48 different states? Just pointing it out.
Yes, absolutely it is. And that's exactly why we need to form more of a connection with them. We need to get back on their good side, back in their good graces, and prove, again, to the society, adds to that reputation part that we can work with the government, that we are not this big bad company that's exploiting people and eliminating all of our rivals and things.
I have two questions. One, what other alternatives did we consider? And also, have we tested this out with our target audience that's going to be impacted by the change, the kids?
So actually, I can take that question. While we haven't tested out the lack of like function with the current audience, we've decided that this program would be grandfathered in, which means that current users wouldn't have their status as full user revoked. What this would do is it would create a new wave of users as they're coming in to have this limited access to Facebook and Instagram. So eventually, like Lindsay was talking about, it's a long-term effect. So in a couple years, then that's all they're going to know, and they're just going to be excited that they have a photo sharing account. So it will be better received once the full wave of 13 to 18-year-olds do have the Facebook and Instagram Lite.
And another point to make on that is we are piloting no likes in the United Kingdom currently. It hasn't gone to America in the US yet. So this would be more of our own pilot in the United States to see if this works and kind of combine the results from both.
And other alternatives that we considered, like, maybe focusing on mental health issues of young people, or respectful behavior and things like educational things. I'm just curious what other things we might have thought about.
Well, while that stuff is very important, what we see is that because of the way the adolescent brain is developing, it's really hard, even if you educate them about different social media practices and peer relationships, they're going to feel things very, very deeply, and they're going to feel them emotionally. And there's this whole thing during adolescence, it's egocentrism, when they think, Mom and Dad, you just don't understand me. You just don't get it. I am the only one that's going through this. And this is real data that we've seen through psychological research. And so removing the like button is the best way to attack this issue, just because education and informing adolescents doesn't seem to go very far.
And we also considered, completely based on what Caitlin was saying, it is proven psychologically that it does harm the brain of 13 to 18-year-olds. So we did consider taking it completely away from anybody under the age of 18. But then, Robert, you made a great point earlier in this meeting that eliminates the cool factor. That's who we are, the pinnacle of Facebook and Instagram. This is one of our largest target audiences. So by doing that, we would be biting ourselves in the foot more than it would present more opportunities. So this seemed like the best compromise between the two things.
Still have just a few minutes left. Judges, anything else? Okay, I think that we've got.
Wait, since you guys mentioned it at
Go
the
ahead.
beginning in terms of our current legal status, and shame on me, I hung around with lawyers for too long, but I ain't one. So the other sort of legal issues we have sort of in the fray right now, are any of them touching on this? Either directly or indirectly, that we ought to kind of put the things together?
You mean in terms of the like button specifically, like legal?
Well, in terms of the issue of negative impacts on mental health of youth.
Yeah, so that is why I think our company is attempting to sue these other companies that are putting fake likes on our platform, is that we are starting to recognize that there is a link between like these fake likes and the mental health. And so when people see all of these likes that people are getting, they aren't necessarily true, which is why we are pursuing those likes. So it does, again, the fact that we know about it makes it the ethical issue. It makes it that idea that we as Facebook know that it's causing all of these negative mental health issues, and it's whether we want to do something about it or not.
Looks like we have time. One more question. Any judges?
I have a good one.
Yes.
Just at the heart of this, what you're saying is we as a company we have a bigger responsibility for the behavior of our kids as Facebook than the parents do. How do we sell that? How do we communicate that out? Again, going back to the financial piece, how do we communicate that to our shareholders? Because what you're saying is really fundamental. You guys are saying we have a bigger responsibility to take care of our kids than parents have to take care of our kids. And let's summarize and end on a really, with an effective statement. How do we do this? How do we tell the public that we want to have a bigger role than parents in this decision?
I think it's not so much that we want to have a bigger role than parents, but it's that we want to have just as responsible of a role. Just like a parent's duty is to protect their child, we as a company have created a product that is harming some of our users. So we have a responsibility to make sure that our users are not being harmed. Because as a company, how can we ethically promote a product that doesn't have positive effects, that just hurts people? So as a company, we have a responsibility to our youth. And as such, we have taken steps to alleviate the issue and to move forward.
And we also want to encourage more collaboration within the family. I think, Julie, you made a great point earlier that a lot of adolescents have many Instagram accounts and too many to count, and they come up with all different accounts. And so what the framework that Robin was outlining with how you sign up for the account now, the new registration, would encourage that conversation to be had within the families to ask your parents, hey, what is my social security number? Can you help me get identification of my age? So that the parents are more aware of what accounts do my children have? Is this allowed? Is this something that we're going to work on in our family? That kind of stuff. So it is encouraging that collaboration that goes back to our mission statement of sharing things with the world and with each other between family and friends.
Thank you very much, team. Now it's time to step out of our roles. We are now judges again, and you are now students again. And I'd like to go, yes, we do have a little bit of applause for you, absolutely. Thank you for that presentation. And we'd like to just offer you some feedback on your project, on your analysis, and on your presentation. And maybe some of this will be valuable for you as you craft your 10 and your 90-second, because we do have some things we would, as business people, like to see more of looking at. So I'm just going to open it up to the judges, and you offer any feedback that you would like.
Okay, I can kick it off. First of all, just mechanically with your presentation, it's really difficult when you guys are all remote, especially when it comes to the Q&A. I thought you guys handled it really well. You were very seamless. You were not tripping over each other. Very impressive, very polished. Lindsay, my question not my question. I think it might have been Bobby's question about, no, it was Julie's question about talking to our competitors. That's something you wouldn't have known. Your answer was spot on, because she took you to a path that you wouldn't know the answer to really unless you were really involved in Facebook. And I was impressed that you came up with that. I was impressed that you had a strong answer for information that you didn't know. You deflected that really well. Just in terms of some feedback, I think that the most underutilized part of your presentation was the cigarette analogy, because with this being a business ethics competition, there's a lot, and a presentation, there's a lot of unknown here. And when I saw that slide that said, think about the cigarette industry, it made me think back to like watching Mad Men, where 50 years ago, the industry didn't know about the potential negative impact, the potential liability, and they were really at the beginning of an ethical issue. Well, 20 years from now, we could look back and say, we are right at the beginning of an ethical issue. And there's so much more for this specific presentation that you guys could draw out of that. And I think if you can hit that home a little harder in your 10-minute and your 90-second, it's really impactful, because it made me think when you put that on your slide. The only other thing, just if you get the chance to rework the presentation a little bit, the middle part of your presentation, there was only maybe 1 or 2 slides. There's a lot of data you were throwing out at us, or at least data you were alluding to about users and finance and growth, but there was no information to back that up. And I think it would have helped keep us as judges a little bit more engaged, because the content was there, but it didn't translate as well without some visuals. So, but there's some really good pieces to your presentation. And I think that with some fine tuning for the next round of it, you can make it really punchy, because I was thinking a lot with some of your points. So, well.
Thank you, Robert.
I can go.
Thank you.
You guys were super well prepared, polished, professional. Teamwork was great. So well done and congrats. And it's a good issue. So good and current. My primary suggestion would be, particularly because it's a business ethics case competition, I think if you could think about being a lot more or somewhat more very pointed around the ethical dilemma that's at hand here. Is it right to try and maximize revenues by targeted revenue? And that is in the interest of our shareholders. Yes, that's a moral right and obligation. Is it right to try to protect vulnerabilities of young people? Yes, like the ethical dilemma, is it right to have a product that allows people to connect in a meaningful way in society? Yes, that's a moral, that's a right, it's a moral value, yes. Is it right to contribute to try and prevent mental health issues? Yes. So presenting those moral dilemmas, that's the ethical part of this that I think if you could make that stronger, that would strengthen your case.
Great. So building on what Robert and Bobby and Jim have said so far, on the Robert side, you guys had great slides from the perspective of they weren't overwhelming, you weren't reading, and my attention wasn't divided between reading the content on the slide and paying attention to what you were saying, which was very rich. That also left you with a lot of white space on your slides that you could have used to put some numbers in. You could have used to use the citation to the psychological studies that you are referencing. Use the name of the article instead of Sherman et al., something to that effect. And on the Bobby side, I totally agree. And then on your initial transitions, like I thought the way that you worked, the teamwork factor here was really incredible. I also liked, Caitlin, in your last answer to the curveball question from Robert, where he was saying like, bring it home and bring it home strong, which was a big ask, right? You reformulated the question in a very respectful way and answered the question you wanted to answer. And that was amazing. That was truly amazing. So pointers moving forward, if you could put some more numbers up, people want to know how much is this going to cost us? And one other point on the lawsuits, saying you don't have the resources for lawsuits or the capacity. No one's going to believe that Facebook doesn't have the money to hire more lawyers, right? But flip it and say, we'd rather put the money towards R&D and development and gaining a new population moving forward and not becoming obsolete rather than paying lawyers' fees. And as a former lawyer, I hate to say that, but it's true. You don't want your money going to lawyers' fees. You want your money going into a revenue generating experience.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And I'll just finish it up here and say a couple of things. I agree with everything your judges say, and I believe that you've got some good feedback to take forward to your 10-minute. Definitely, it's very important that you think about what it is your audience is going to want. And I'm going to go back and point right to Julie's piece, and that is that the executive team is going to want numbers. There's just no getting around it. And so the more that you can do to provide some numbers, I know that's not necessarily easy, and I know that you may have to make some assumptions, and that's okay. As long as you share the assumptions and you're very clear saying, assuming this possibility, then you can go ahead with that. But we would like to see something that we can chew just a little bit more. Otherwise, it's a nicely qualitative piece. We'd like to see a little more quantitative. I really appreciated the fact that you all looked into the camera. I know that's not necessarily easy. I think all of us spend way too much time in Zoom now, and a lot of people don't. They look down at the screen, and that's an opportunity for you to always look into the camera. You'll automatically rise above 95% of the people who are in Zoom meetings, and I promise you that you will come across as more professional and have a lot more impact with your audience. Over the 15 years that I've been an Uber judge, it's interesting to watch what companies are chosen because it changes with what's going on in the business world out there. 15 years ago, we wouldn't have had topics surrounding Google or Facebook or some of them, but now it seems as though everything is moving in that direction. We've had many presentations on Uber, for instance. Google always makes it in. And Facebook always makes it in. It'll be interesting to see what's going to happen next. I suppose TikTok may come up next year. Nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure. Probably something from Zoom, I would think. So you bit off a lot by going with a very big and technical topic that's massive. So I congratulate you for your courage in going with a huge behemoth like Google or Facebook, excuse me. And I hope that Mark Zuckerberg, who's sitting right next to me, he's nodding his head. He's saying, yes, let's go with what this team says. Let's hire them as consultants. Let's pay them huge money for what they have done and will be doing.
I have a suggestion, and again, it gets harder because you go from 20 minutes to 10 minutes to 90 seconds. But in terms of being persuasive about the problem, something to just think about, maybe take what's it called? Something from the playbook, take a lesson from the playbook of our politicians. Maybe a story or two that personalize the negative impact on young people rather than just statistics, but like, this executive committee, they're probably all people that, they're somewhere in their 30s to 50s or 60s, and they have kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, and, telling a story or two about how somebody they love has been hurt, or even how one of you has been hurt, or one of your family might really kind of make it less than optional for this board to act on, for this executive committee to act on it.
Yeah, Bobby, I think that's great. And then after that personal story, saying it's not an isolated instance, right? It's expanded out. And then picking up on something Bobby said earlier, becoming a habit of mine, I guess, is if you could tie it back to Facebook values. So using the ethical dilemmas that Bobby rephrased, and then basically sending the same words back to the executive committee on the values they chose for the company.
Right. tie it into what they've said, hold them accountable to what their own values are, because a lot of times values are just, let's have a value here, and people don't necessarily stick with them. And I think that Facebook may be one of those that doesn't stick with their values all the time. Do you have any questions for us? Is there anything that we can offer you more for your 10 or your 90 coming up?
No, thank you so much for having us today. It's been so fun putting together this presentation, and it was great to present it to you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we sure appreciate having you with us. I know that you're all class of 2022, which means that next year you might be able to come back to IBEC. And we're hoping to go live again in Boston. So who knows, maybe we'll see you live there. But it has been a pleasure to work with you. Robbie, did you have anything you wanted to finish with at all, Robbie?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Hey,
Great
hey,
job.
Jim, are
Great
we
job.
gonna stay on after the,
Yeah, we'll see him for a couple minutes, yeah. So
Lindsay,
what we'll
where
do
are you
now is
what PwC office?
we'll let
In Boston, the Assurance.
Insurance, cool.
Okay, what Robbie's going to do is he will escort our students out. Judges will stay here for just a couple minutes. We'll just clear up a couple of things before you start to fill out your evaluations. Thank you. Good luck with your 10. Good luck with your 90 tomorrow.
Yeah,
Thank
have
you.
fun.
And good luck with your pursuing your careers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.